know.
Toasted or plain?
Toasted for me, please.
Yes.
So, at any rate, that's, I think, you know, the family have had these things so many times.
Well, we love it.
Yeah,
we love it.
Other people have lives too, you know. And then, of course, I've done all kinds of things. I decided I want to get married and have some children. I mean, you know.
And how did you meet Grandpa?
Grandpa. Which one? Dudley?
No,
He's the other grandpa. But you see, the 4 children grew up so much as a family that there was never any idea. One grandpa was the other one's grandpa. You know what I mean, wasn't it, Will?
Yeah.
You know. In fact, you used to call him Uncle Dudley, even though you'd never met him.
That's
Uncle
right.
Dudley.
Yes, always Uncle Dudley. In '92 we used to call him Uncle Dudley, just when we were talking about him. But I never believed in just because people are divorced or they've died or something, that you cut them right out.
Right.
I think you keep them, they're with you in your heart. Always, aren't they?
Right.
So, I mean, you know, we talk about Grandpa Campbell. Now, this is Grandpa Campbell you're talking about, is it? Not my grandpa, not your great-grandpa.
No.
No, that was Grandpa that was on the film last night.
Right. So where did you meet him and how?
Grandpa Campbell, during the war. And anybody had told me that I would end up in Canada, which I hardly knew where it was, I would think they were out of their cotton-picking minds. Why would I want to go to a foreign country? Since I was married, I had 2 children, I had a nice home, I was very happy. I really thought I was, you know, and I was. But your life changes when you don't know that it's going to change. The war came along. I was alone with 2 children. My mother and father were in their house and they were bombed. Lost everything, you know. And, well, Granny was in the hospital for a while because she had cuts in her head and her ribs were broken when they pushed her over the wall. So, you know,
Because there's a bomb fell. Tell us about that.
Right,
There was a bomb fell next door or something.
well, the 2 houses.
Or in the garden.
It was no, the bomb fell on the 2 houses, well, and it was a big enough, well, it was like a wardrobe coming down, small wardrobe.
But it didn't go off.
It went off. No, this was another time.
Oh, I
The
see.
one I'm talking about Granny and Grandpa being
Yeah.
blown down. That
Yeah.
house that they'd had all those years was left. All they had left was a sheet hanging on a tree.
Oh man.
Because Granny, fortunately, was in the shelter, the little shelter at the bottom of the garden. And if it hadn't have been for my aunt coming in, and she was out shopping, and she lived a little way out, and the siren went, and she wouldn't go home. She rushed into Mother's house, and my mother used to go under we had a little cloakroom off the front hall, and she would go and sit in there, sit on the lavatory. Well, my brother and my father had put some extra wooden staves across the top, so that if it was bombed, you would be some sort of shelter, because my father went out to be a warden. He was a fire warden.
Wow.
In the war, so as soon as ever because he was retired, and as soon as ever the siren went, he would go out and gather the butcher and the milkman and all these people around, his friends, and they would definitely keep eyes on you, get people off the streets, see that you were all safely in, you know. Because all the blackout then came, everything went off. And, you know. So it was a very different life indeed. So, no, the time I went out, I had to go around, but we never went to bed in a nightie or pajamas. You always went in a sweater and pants and everything. We didn't go to bed, actually. We slept on a mattress. Because Sally Ann was what? When the war broke out in 39. Christopher, it broke out in the September of 39, and Christopher was born in the December of 39. So I was, the last 3 months of pregnancy with Christopher was when the war started. We didn't get bombed until the following year. It didn't. Anyway, there's so many stories, and people have said to me when I never talk about it unless asked, and except for Ben and I, and who went through the war together. I had a friend over there who lost 2 husbands in the war.
Oh.
One, he was an officer training when he was in university, and so as soon as war was declared, he was called up, you see, and he was a second lieutenant, and then they were sent over to Dunkirk, which was the one that they bombed them on the beaches. And he got killed. He was killed. And then she married an American flyer, and he was killed. 2 years after the first one. So you see, it was not a bad thing all round. So we have great many stories. I mean, 6 years of war, you do a lot of things. And a lot of things happen to you. And I'll get round to how I met Grandpa Campbell in a moment. But the thing is, war altered everybody's lives in a way. Yeah, you know, because the men all went off, and the women were left, and we had children, and we had to go through the bombing, we had to, and we short of food, so we had to queue up for food, and we were on rations like we were, everything. And it was, but we still had good times, because everybody was in it together.
Egg on toast or toast on side?
Egg on toast, please.
And spam? Egg and spam?
No spam, thank you. Had enough of that in the war. We lived on spam practically. We used to get a shilling's worth, which was worth about 25 cents in those days. We got a shilling's worth of meat, rationed every week, half of which was spam. So we used to put all our coupons together for the meat, so we could at least get one small roast about every month or every 5 weeks. So then we'd all gather because we'd all have one slice of roast beef. Ooh, so good too. So people say to you, you know, why don't you write a book? And every man in his dog wrote books of what they did in England during the war. I mean, that lovely stuff. And the same thing is, some people say to me sometimes, it should be on the screen. And I don't say a word. I don't tell them. Why should I? No way. But anyway, now, let's talk about, so we're getting back to how I met Grandpa Campbell. Isn't that what you asked me? Yeah. Well, I belonged to a club. And before my husband, Dudley, at the time, whom you've heard of, before he went off, he had a very good friend who lived in Brighton. And John Fort, I think his name was, who was killed in the war, actually.
Finito?
Yes, thank you, darling. He was killed in the war, I think. He blew up a bridge to stop the Germans getting over it and blew himself up. He didn't get off in time. He got the Victoria or something, the George Cross, I think. But as somebody said to me, which is true, what's the good of a cross if you've got nothing to pin it on? You know, it was sad, really. But there were a lot of brave men in the war. All of them were brave. They actually got out and fight at all. So there was this. We went to spend a weekend with Johnny Fort, who was going off to the war. And when was it? Yes, when Dudley had just been called out. He was on.
Sorry to interrupt. A little ham?
Very little, please, darling.
Very little ham?
Yes.
And tomato?
And a bit of tomato, that's fine.
Oh, sorry, Mum, it's hot, sorry.
So
a little more tomato?
No, that's great.
More ham?
No more, thank you, darling, that's fine.
Ham? Tomato, though?
The HP, please, darling. Right.
Thank you,
So, do we take time?
Another tomato? Sure.
Oh, thank you.
More for you, ham and tomato for you?
That's a very good chef you've got here.
Delicious.
They could give him a regular job. He's on trial at the moment. Good health, it's not easy to come by, you know. There we are, would you put that back, please? Oh, coffee, I love coffee.
Sorry to interrupt. Don't let us interrupt your...
The only time I drink coffee is at lunchtime. Well, except unless it's in Levenses in the morning. But I've already consumed about 2 or 3 mugs of tea, so I decided that I'm not ready for Levenses. But anyway, yes, to get back to what we were talking about. Yes, well, so we went to see this friend of Dudley's, and before, well, I think he was on vacation leave or something, sent overseas, and Dudley was still in England, although he was in the army. And so he got a little time off, I think a weekend or something, and came to Brighton, and we met Johnny Ford, and he was a member of the Breakfast Club. There was one in London, there were 2 or 3 very good clubs actually, and in Hove, and so we went there, one Sunday, and they had a restaurant upstairs, we had lunch, and they made him an honorary member. All officers were honorary members. In fact, you didn't pay any dues when you were allowed to, because it was a private club, you see. And so when he went overseas, and about a month after that, they gave me the honourable membership. They conferred it to me when he went overseas, you see. So that's how I got to know Wynne.